do. Go ahead, international couple. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Okay, so thank you, host, for letting me up. I just want to say this because I think it's kind of really ridiculous and actually kind of sad that someone would rate themselves on a public platform, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The things that my husband deems as beautiful is like what, and I think it would be that way for most American people. But we're just talking about that's a whole nother subject. But I don't want sis to do that. But that's her will. I wanted to say that I highly agree with what C was saying. I've had much of the same experience where
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm 35. And I'm married, but in my dating experience, it was like just very, how do I say this? I had the same experience in that I grew up in the South. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't a part of Jack and Jill, but, to say the least, my dad worked very hard. Both my parents actually worked very hard, and, they both worked to provide some sense of a sense of stability. And actually, I would consider myself and my siblings to be decently privileged for the area, I guess you could say, that we lived in, right? So in that, in my dating experience and dating mostly, I would say primarily, Black American men, and having my father who's also Black to tell me like, hey, you're just gonna have to date a white man. And that was actually very heartbreaking. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way, as far as like, hey, in order for me to get what I want, I may have to, I'm I was always open probably to dating outside of my race, but I don't know. It's just finding the right type of white tea man that you would be willing to date, and that could understand, your struggles as a Black woman. Those were things that were very foundational for me, and that, I wanted to find that in a partner. And finding that in the South, I think, is a little bit more difficult than like in the North per se. So that was just kind of hard for me to kind of like do, if I may say. However, my sister and I both actually ended up marrying men internationally. Not necessarily marrying men that lived internationally. For me, my husband, he was here. But my sister, she ended up moving to France. And I just feel like that those are direct it's a direct display of how it's difficult to date, and as much as we may have wanted to, because like C said, it's very natural for you, I think, for you to want to date within your own race. You share a lot of the same experiences, or at least you can understand a lot of the same experiences. And so I'm sorry, it's like really raining hard here, so I'm kind of looking out like I hope a tornado doesn't storm up. But anyway,
Are you in Houston?
no, I'm actually in Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that was just my experience. One other thing that I wanted to say, I don't remember the lady's name, the other lady that was up here, but she mentioned like sprinkle, and how like both sides are disingenuous, or not looking at the values of each other on both sides, for men and women. But I do think that this whatever you call this blow up in like sprinkle culture within women, and saying we're not gonna accept less. We're not. A lot of that has come out of like, to me, it's come out of like tiredness, and as a knee-jerk reaction to like the red pill and Kevin Samuels. That's just my opinion. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Colorism is a real issue that is displayed when you look at AD and Clay's situation on like what is it, Love is Blind season 6, and how there were whole podcasts about that, about how like AD used her body, even though she was a pretty girl, she was used to using her body because like the darker you are, it's almost like the more on point you have to be qualified as a pretty woman. So, everything, it's kind of the same thing that we experience within the employment world, where like you have to do everything right to be considered, to have the value of some lighter complected women that can do substantially less, if that makes sense. So in that scenario, I mean, like someone said in the comments, like Clay didn't really want her. Even though she was a pretty young lady, she was a beautiful girl. She had a knockout figure. However, she had learned to use her body as the way, or as her most valued asset, even though she was a beautiful person inside and out. So yeah, that's all I have to say, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, international couple. I appreciate you. Have a good night. All right.
Mm-hmm.